Now, let's welcome our second speaker, our main speaker for tonight, Dan.
I'm Dan. I'm an alcoholic. Hi, Dan. Can I put this down here? I'm an alcoholic and an alicodatina gambler, crack a sexanon. You know, I had a so cool. I want to thank Justin before I forget, and Larry. When I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, I wasn't sure what I was, you know, and I had exposure to, you know, everything that's out there, you know. Oh, by the way, so just so you know, I'm coming up on 40 years of sobriety. December 31st, 2026. I just think ahead, you know what I'm saying? But I will be 20 years sober December 31st. And the cool thing is, for me, it's really interesting because my wife and I bought a house in Sedona, Arizona, and we're moving there on Friday. And but the first meeting that I can remember was the Sunday night Marina Center speaker meeting 19 and a half years ago. And my sponsor was a guy named Liquor Store Dave. And this was the first meeting I came to. And he said, stand at the door and shake people's hands. Greet them. And so for the next few years, that's what I did. So this was the first room I came to. And it's really interesting because it's probably going to be the last room I speak at in Los Angeles. So I've come full circle, and the Marina Center has been my steady home for the first 18 and a half years of my sobriety. A lot of meetings here, a lot of meetings. Wonderful room. Matter of fact, something happened to me just before the break ended, and I was standing back there talking to Chuck, who just ducked into the bathroom, and we're talking about how his day is going, how he's doing, and I'm waiting. There's a line to go into the men's room. You know, there's about 5 feet there, and then Chuck kind of got bored standing in that line or whatever, and he sat down. And so I'm standing in the line. And the guy back there, what's your name? Ray. So Ray's standing there, and he said, you know, it's a couple of minutes before the break is going to end. And Ray says, you know, there's nobody in there. Or you want to try opening that door? And it reminded me that Alcoholics Anonymous is just exactly like that. I make some assumptions, but unless I push the door open, you know, unless I'm willing to take the action, I'm going to be standing waiting for a miracle to happen. And also, I want to thank my dear friend Larry. Larry, really, Larry's story about how he got to AA is really pretty cool. And I'll give you my perspective of it rather than Larry's, because to me, and I'll talk a little bit about this tonight. To me, Alcoholics Anonymous is a program, a spiritual program of miracles. that, you know, I've done therapy. Did 14 years of therapy, and I have been Rolfed and rebirthed, and that's just the R's. And then I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I had a spiritual experience as a result of these steps. So Larry was, we've been going to the same meeting. We started this meeting at the park at 7th and Wilshire, and I'm not pimping for the meeting at 7th and Wilshire, but it's a good meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous on Friday night. So if you're ever around at the park at 7:30, the New Freedom meeting is a pretty good meeting. Well, so Larry's watching his kid play basketball, and it's a summer. When was it, Larry? March. It was March. And Larry's watching his kid play basketball, and he's walking by, and he had made that prayer in the morning about just being delivered from this goddamn disease, just getting some relief. And he's walking by the door, and Bob, this guy we know, is carrying the coffee pots in, and he says, hey, you want to come in here? He said, hey, maybe you want to come in here. And Larry says, well, what is it? He said, oh, come on in. And it's a meeting, and that was Larry's first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. He didn't come to that park to go to a meeting. That's how powerful this program is. He didn't come there to go to a meeting. He came to watch his kid play basketball and bump into God. You know? So, wow. You know, the Bill Wilson, when they wrote, the Big Book was written in 1939, and when they did the second printing of the first edition, they changed one word in the 12 steps. The 12th step used to say, having had a spiritual experience as the result of these steps. And before they did the second printing, the committee got together and they asked Bill, no, they voted to change that, okay, to awakening, having had a spiritual awakening. But for Bill, it had to be a spiritual experience. And I'll tell you something, and I'm just talking about me, and I'm just talking about my experience, that's what this program gave me. I'm a hope to die alcoholic, you know, and I did a mountain of outside issues. But in an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, the thing that somebody advised me to do when I was a few years sober, and I am now pimping for the 12 steps and for people calling themselves alcoholics. You can be whatever you want. But what I did is somebody shoved those 20 questions in my face and said, take these, because I am an alicodatina gambler cracker sexa crackanon. You know what I am? I am. But I'm an alcoholic. First and foremost, I took those 20 questions, and the first time I did it, dishonestly, I answered 15 yes. And the second time, which was a few years later, I think I answered 18 or 19 of them, you know. But I'm an alcoholic, and I did a lot of other stuff because this is, you know, this is America, and it's 2006, and there's everything out there. But if you drink like I drink, and you drink to get downtown, then you're an alcoholic. And if you drink when you know you shouldn't drink, and you drink because you have no other choice but to drink, because you cannot stand the noise that's in your brain, then you're my kind of alcoholic. Because that's what I got here. I got here trying to shut the noise off. And then I'll just tell you a little bit of, last night I was with some friends, some dear friends, and and we were talking about this discussion. Used to have this, I'll tell the story again. I was, to prove to you I'm really an alcoholic and that I'm really screwed up, I was a cab driver in New York for 7 years. Okay, if that doesn't qualify me to be an alcoholic, nothing. But in one of the times I quit cab driving, I used to try to quit cab driving all the time. I hated cab driving, but I couldn't quit it because you're your own boss. You work 11, 12 hours a day on that seat, but the money you make, they pay you in cash. And the Barney Stone Bar is on 8th Avenue. It's only 3 blocks. And it pay you in cash, and you got a lot of singles. And you come up to the bar, and you got a roll of singles and $5 bills, and and you just start in, But one of the jobs I had when I quit cab driving, I was talking about this last night, was I was a window cleaner. And I'm talking about alcoholism now, okay? I'm talking about alcoholism and the bizarre shit we do in being alcoholics. So I got this job. Somebody said I could make $25 a day. Now, this is a while ago. It's probably 68 or 1970. And so somebody said you can make $25. $25 a day was really decent money in 1968 or 35 or 50, whatever it was. Anyway, so I went down to Red Ball Maintenance, and I got a job. I talked to this guy named Murphy, and Murphy was probably 400 pounds, and he was attached to this desk. This huge guy was attached, and he gave me a bucket and a squeegee and a sponge, and he sent me out with a guy named Dan Flash to clean windows. And my second or third day I was only a window cleaner for 3 days. But I found out what the window cleaners do at 5:30 in the morning when they start in December, when it's about 14 degrees Fahrenheit, and you're up 60 floors on a building. What do these guys do before they go out there? Well, they drink wine. You gotta get ready. You gotta get ready to go out there, right? So everybody's got a short dog. Everybody's, they're all popping these, unscrewing these, And, I like wine where the label depicts things that move. Like Ripple and Night Train. Things that move, And they're drinking Ripple and Night Train, and they're going out on these buildings. So I'm out on this building, and they give you this harness, and there's 2 straps that come out, and you've got to. The buildings are old. I mean, these buildings are 70, 80 years old, and that was 30 years ago. And when you change, it's 5:30 in the morning or 6 o'clock. Now, sun's not even up, and after you've done 2 windows, the water from the squeegee has come down the thick jacket you're wearing, but underneath the jacket, and it has turned your arm is now frozen. There's an ice from here to here because the water is draining down from the squeegee. And you're wearing a glove, and that's frozen. And Dan Flash is, whacked already. And here, get over there. Do those. Do, 5, 6, and 7. So I'm out there, and I'm like swinging out to do the next set of windows. So you unhook this one, and you reach across, and you unhook this one. Now you're 60 floors up. That's 600 feet, I believe. 600 feet. Let me say that again. 600 feet. When you look down, you can't see shit because you're 600 feet in the air. You can't. Cars are that big at 600 feet. And we're not talking parachute here. We're talking dumb harness. And so I hook on over here, and now I swing out like Dan. Now, Dan is a tall guy, and he's very slender because he only, his entire nutrients consist of Ripple and nitrate, and he won't talk to me. That's the other thing. He had a problem. He didn't want to talk to me because I was a new guy, and he figured I'd just be there and gone in a couple of days. Anyway, so he wouldn't talk to me, but he did tell me what to do. And so I hook on over here, and I swing out and hook on the clamp on this spike that's coming out of the other window, and I'm on a windowsill, and there's 3 feet between me, and I lean out, and now I swing out and try to hook the right one. So the left one is here. Try to hook the right one, swing out, and hook it on, and the spike comes out. And now I'm hanging 600 fucking feet in the air. And I'm working with a guy who drinks nitrate. That's a typical situation for an alcoholic. And I went in and turned in my squeegee, and the punchline to this story is I said to Murphy, I said, I'm done. That spike came out of there. You guys, there's no safety precaution. You guys just don't care. And he said, well, wait a minute. You're from out west, ain't you? I said, yeah. He said, what does a cowboy do when he falls off his horse? And I said, have you ever fallen off a 600-foot horse? I said, would you just take this stuff and let me, So I took, and they paid me in cash, and so I made like $12, and I couldn't wait to get to the bar. So, Justin, how long do I babble on? 10 till. Oh. My problem is not the thoughts that come and go. My problem is the thoughts that come and stay. And that's the problem of alcoholism. My problem is that I have a ruminative, obsessive mind, and I can't let shit go. My problem is that there's 2 sizes of cups back there. And the person that parked behind me parked over the line so that I didn't have enough room to park my car. What do you do with a person who parks like that? Well, they should be dragged out of their goddamn car. What? No, really. And horsewhipped out in front of the, Isn't that what you do with them? Now, how come there's 2 different size cups here? And what about the people? There's signs all over. What about the people who park in back there, even though there's signs? What should happen to those people? That's a kind of, you're laughing, but you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. I am the president of the Santa Monica Freeway. Do not get in my lane and not signal. Do not do that. Because I have to avail myself of my rights as a motorist. And I have to salute you. So here I am, 4.5 years sober, almost 5 years sober, standing on the door of this particular meeting, greeting people and telling them I'm fine. And I'm not fine. I had a suicide attempt. I had a few before, but sober, The 12 steps didn't work. Going to meetings didn't work. She didn't work. It didn't work. And I got the gun in my mouth with the hammer back, and I'm 4.5 years sober. What do you do? I mean, what do you do? And I talked to my sponsor. I talked to Liquor Store Dave. Liquor Store Dave said, work these steps like your life depends on it, or pull the trigger, chump. And then he hung up on me. Now, that's the kindest thing anybody in Alcoholics Anonymous ever did to me, because I have come to realize that you cannot deny an alcoholic his pain or his dog. You cannot, if I'm headed over the falls, or the person you know who has alcoholism or whatever they're into, if they're headed over the falls without a parachute or a raft, let them go. Let them go. You cannot save anybody here. You cannot save anybody. And Dave knew it. He knew it. And he said, work the steps or die. And stop whining about it, you know. And so he put me down in front of, the other thing he said is he gave me a phone number of a man whom I knew, who was a mechanic and who had 38 years sober at the time, Bob Anderson. And Bob sat me down, and Bob was a guy in his 70s at the time, and he was a big guy. And he had been... I guess, had broken fingers and knuckles and he had great big thick fingers, and they were gnarly. They were all bent from transmissions falling on them, you know what I mean? And he said, he looked me right in the eye at his kitchen table where he saved a lot of people, and he said, buddy, this disease is going to kill you sober. Your problem, Bob Anderson said to me, is your thinking. He said, it's the way you think sober. You're sober. And I was bleeding to death inside. My mind, I was dying sober. I was suicidal sober. Alcoholics Anonymous wasn't working for me. And he told me about the way I was thinking. And it just so happens that once I begin to identify alcoholic thinking, I begin to realize that there's only one solution. Something has got to get between me and God, between me and my disease, and that something is God. I got to put something there, or I'm done. I'm going to go to my last bartender for business advice and act on it again. You're going to cut me off, and I'm going to reach under the seat for what I got handy, and we're going to have a problem. Or I'm going to be, my other thing is the supermarket. I hate the goddamn supermarket. I hate the supermarket. Worse than I hate the supermarket is WAMU. Washington Mutual Bank. I hate Washington Mutual Bank. I can get into Washington Mutual Bank at 3 minutes to 12. The one up here on Venice Boulevard. I can get in through those doors that hiss, and the green light's got to come on and off, and you get in there, and it's 3 minutes to 12, and there's 8 people in the line, and at 2 minutes to 12, one of the girls in one of these little, do you know this bank up here? Why? And they have little kiosks, 4 of them, and everything is pastel colors. Some marketing genius designed this goddamn bank, and there's little islands of money. Do you know what I mean? And I'm in, it's 3 minutes to 12, and there's 8 people in this line, and at 2 minutes to 12, 2 of the people, there's only 4 goddamn kiosks, 2 of the people that put their signs up and they leave. Now there's 10 people because it's now 2 minutes to 12, and people from getting off for lunch who need to get their check cashed, they are joining the line. Now there's 12 people. Now there's 15 people in the line. Now, and I'm standing there, and somebody's, dumped $1,000 in quarters, and needs it counted and that shit. What do you do? What do you do? Well, the guy in the suit, all the way on the side, who's standing at the desk, he's sitting at the desk in the back. You say, hey, excuse me, can you see that there's 15 people in this goddamn line here? You've got my money and people, security people come over and begin to speak to you, They ask you if you've got a problem or not. See, I've got a 2-year-old son, and he didn't get his nappy today, and the term terrible twos it doesn't even describe my son when he doesn't have his nappy, okay? And my wife and I, we went out to brunch with her friend, and we're back, and he didn't have his nap, and he's starting to act up. And she said, what should I do? I said, take him out, put him in the car. We'll come back around 6:30 tonight and get him. She said, you're kidding. Yeah, I'm kidding. But that'll get you in trouble. That'll end a marriage, My problem is not the thoughts that come and go. My problem is the thoughts that come and stay. My problem is that I have untreated alcoholism. My problem is you. Or, as I'm fond of saying, my problem is people, and they're located everywhere. That's my problem. And it's funny, because about, this thing about there's, 1 pointing out and 4 pointing back. I'm always, Lord and Master of the universe, and you are always in my way. You ever notice that's the way it is with alcoholics? If we could just get them to do it our way. The problem is, and the 12 and 12 says so, is that we are constitutionally incapable of forming a true partnership with another human being. That this disease, my problem, my alcoholism, prohibits me from forming a true partnership with another human being. Or from another way of saying it is being happy. I have a disease that so intrudes. I don't know when it started. I don't know when. I'll tell you a quick story. For my business, I travel. Sometimes I travel to Europe. And I'm sober, like I said, I'm 19 and a half years sober. And but I was dating a woman who was a school principal, and she lived in Redondo Beach, and this is a few years ago. And I have not smoked in America in 18 years. But when I go to Europe, I smoke cigarettes. Now, is that not the sickest, craziest thing? How hard is it to quit? If you're an ex-smoker, or a smoker, you know how hard it is to quit. So I go to Europe and I buy, because it's only $1.75 a pack, I buy 2 cartons of Marlboro Light on the thing over there, and then I do I do a tour. I go to a bunch of different cities, and I got my 2 cartons of cigarettes. And, in about 10 days is about what it takes to smoke up 2 cartons of cigarettes. Then I'm back on the airplane chewing Nicorettes and shaking. So I've done that several times. And I'm talking about alcoholism now. And I get back to Redondo Beach, only this time, when I got off the plane, I neglected to throw the cigarettes away. And I got off the plane, got in a taxi, and lit a cigarette. Now, I'm at my girlfriend's house. Now, this is alcoholism. I'm talking about alcoholism now. I haven't smoked in probably 12 years up to this point, or 14 years. And we're lying in bed there, and the TV's on, and I said, let me go check my car. I don't know if I locked my car or not. And then a little while later, I said, oh, you know what? Don't worry about it. I'll take the garbage out. I'll take it out. Where does it come from that as soon as something gets between me and what I need, I'll say anything I can. I'll say anything to justify. The king needs to justify. And there it is. I'm sober years and years, and now I'm just talking about cigarettes. But see, somewhere 30 years before that, I learned that you can't come between me and my drink. Anything that comes between me and alcohol and the thing that fixes me must go. Anything. I don't know when I crossed that line, but that's alcoholism. That's a way of thinking, and alcoholics have it. It's called me first, doesn't matter. And I'll be sweet to you and I'll be nice to you if I need something from you, or if we're in a legally binding relationship where you get, community partner. If I don't behave if I don't behave myself, I will do whatever I need to do. But truth is, there's only one number one, say. So the next morning, now it's 6 o'clock in the morning and I'm up out of bed. And she says, where are you going? Oh, it's such a beautiful morning. I want to get some fresh air. See, where does that, this stuff is so deeply ingrained in me. My alcoholism is so at an unconscious level that I can't, and I do it all the time. I do it on the freeway. I do it in the supermarket. I do it in relationships. I have to, and what it's doing is it's destroying my life sober. It's destroying my relationships sober. And I got here, I'm 4.5 years sober, and I got here, I'm making $5,000 a week on the telephone. I'm a phone guy. And 4.5 years later, I'm broke. And I had the house in Venice that I had, gone. The aerobics teacher girlfriend, gone. The Porsche, gone. Now, I know where all that stuff is. It's just relocated its stuff out of my life. It's now elsewhere. And Liquor Store Dave is telling me, pull the trigger, or work the steps. What's wrong? You take away the only thing that makes my life worth living, and you tell me to come to AA and sit in these rooms, these stuffy rooms on these hard-ass chairs and keep coming back. You know what you can do with your keep coming back? And here I am. I'm 4.5 years, and now Anderson's sitting there looking at me across the table, and he says, you have a disease that's going to kill you sober, pal. Your thinking is screwed, and you don't even know it. And you're going to keep having the same relationships. You're going to keep screwing up your jobs. You're going to keep damaging yourself and the people you love. You are constitutionally incapable of forming a true partnership with another human being. What are you going to do? Pull the trigger or work the steps? Like your life depended on it. Now, if I'm sounding like I'm, this is a hard-line pitch for AA, I'm telling you, that what I did is I worked the steps and I began to ask. I found a higher power through an application to these daily application. I was so desperate and so scared that this really was the last house on the block for me, because therapy didn't work for me. You know, Rolfing and rebirthing didn't work. You know, Est didn't work. Werner Erhard told me, if I just brought more people to the seminars that I'd be getting better. Didn't happen. I didn't get better. And I have been married 4 times. 4. I'm a winner. I'm a winner. And that's what I got. That's what I got. So I began to do the steps. I began to try to have a relationship with a higher power. When I did that 4th and 5th step, I got in touch. It says so on page 75. We begin to have spiritual experiences. I began to contact something that came between me and my thinking. My anger, my greed. Do you know what I would say to you if you were on the other end of the phone and there was a $1,000 commission between you and me? You know what I would say to you? Anything to get you to buy. Because I'm a liar. But that's okay. This is America, and I was selling a good product. I would just maybe exaggerating a little bit, but I needed, I got a $90,000 Porsche, and I got to make a car payment. It's your problem, not my problem. I'm 4.5 years sober, and that's the kind of a lifestyle I'm living. And the women the women who are in my life, I just use them. I like them well enough. They're nice people, but if they get in my way, they got to go. Just the way it is. 4 marriages. So I began to do these steps, and around the 4th and 5th step, I did a lot of writing, and I began to have an experience of a higher power. I began to have something between me and my thinking that I could go to when I was in real pain. See, everybody in this room knows what real pain is. I'm not talking about broken bones. I'm talking about real, when she's gone, or when you get that audit notice from the IRS, or they come and take your car, or the boss says, we can't put up with your shit anymore, you got to go. Everybody in this room or your kids, when you walk through the door, run to the back of the house, because they don't know is it Dr. Jekyll or Mr. Hyde that just entered. They don't know. And I know, I've seen those faces. And you know what I'm talking about? I've seen the faces of my children. And I've seen what I've done. The damage I've caused. The people who could, who love me. And what I give them is this madness that I have. And I do it sober. I can do it sober. So I begin to apply. I begin to go to God in the moment, and I begin to ask God for help. Please, Father, help me. This God I found through the steps. And I begin to apply the steps. My grand sponsor, Bob Anderson, said, listen, dummy, women know how to do an application of steps. You know why? Because they know how to apply things. They apply eyeliner. They apply lipstick. This is the way he talked to me. Like I was not the smartest guy in the room, you know what I mean? And he said, you need to apply these steps. You need to have a relationship with a higher power that you can call on to get between you and your thinking. And I began to do what he said because I had no choice. I began to do what he said. A couple more minutes, Justin. And what happened? What happened was I got my life back. What happened is I have a 2-year-old son. What happened is that I never knew it, but when I got here, I always wanted to write books. I just didn't know that was what I wanted. That's what God wanted for me. And now I've written 6 books. I got 2 books that came out last month. What happened was that my hero, the guy named Cubby Selby, Cubby died a year or so ago. When I got my first book published, and I'm talking about years of fighting my thinking with an application of steps, with a higher power. My first book got published, and I used to follow Cubby around where he'd speak and where he'd do readings, and I finally finished this book. I sent it to 40 publishers. Nobody would publish the goddamn book. Nobody wanted it. So I sent it to Europe, and a friend of mine sent it to somebody else in France, and they published it, and then they published it I have never been a rocket to stardom, okay? I've never been an overnight success, but it finally, 4 years after I wrote it, it got published here, and I gave it to Cubby, who had about 25 or 30 years at the time. I gave it to Cubby, and he called 2 months later. I walked into my apartment from my telemarketing, whatever I was doing, and I hit the button on my answering machine, and there was a message that went on for about 5 minutes from Cubby telling me how much he loved this book. And for the next 2 years, I would stand in my bathroom and look at myself in the mirror and hit that button and listen to Cubby whenever I felt bad. And I would ask God every morning when I would sit down in front of the keyboard to come to me and give me inspiration and to just speak through me. And that's 6 books ago. I've never stopped. I owe it to the pain of being sober and not having anywhere else to go except Alcoholics Anonymous. All this program has given me is my life. Thank you. Thanks for letting me share it.